tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right, it's dark.
Just remember, this movie, One Night in Miami, does drop on Amazon Prime on January the 15th, this Friday. So go and definitely check it out. If you want to see our non-spoiler and our spoiler review, I'll leave it at the end of the tag of this interview. But right now, enjoy the interview.
I'm Kingsley Ben-Adir and I play Malcolm X, and I'm here speaking about One Night in Miami with my boy, Samuel Leggett.
Thank you for having me be able to interview you. I'm excited. One Night in Miami. You literally just won the Breakthrough Award for the Gotham Independent. And in addition to that, I think there was a quote from Regina King that you were the best actor for this role. You guys did an amazing job. Your ensemble, your chemistry, the way that it was filmed, it really was a very good film. And I'm really excited to interview you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I hope that I can, share some of the process with you and what it was, what the journey was all about. And because it was a pretty special, project, and the filming of it, even the auditioning process and just meeting Regina for the first time before she cast me, if it had all ended there, it would have been a beautiful experience, because at the very least, I got to spend 3 days, working on the character of Malcolm X, and then I got to do an audition that I knew Regina King was going to watch, and like as an actor, it was pretty special. So when she said she wanted to jump on the phone and sort of begin a conversation, I was pretty excited.
That's amazing. So I think that's a good segue, because one of the first questions I had was, how was it like being directed by the amazing Regina King? I was very curious. What was your, as an actor, how was that for you, your experience?
Well, I've never had an experience working with someone who, I guess, understands the acting process so deeply. Do you know what I mean? Like not even consciously, just in. Regina gets it because she stands there on sets and she knows what is going on in your mind and in your body before action and between action and cut. Like, she gets it. So Regina really, she created this atmosphere. She set the vibe on set, and she made the filming of this project about the acting and the performances. And her sensitivity around emotional performance, is sublime. You know what I mean? So all of the moments in the film, the most tender moments and the most emotionally charged moments were all because of how Regina was directing us. She never bombarded you with too many notes. She always just knew exactly the right thing to say to push your buttons as an actor, to make you get in the right space. So it's really a dream come true. I've worked with a lot of amazing directors, but none who understand acting like Regina. So to get to play Malcolm in this project with her directing was, there was so many reasons why this was a dream. And obviously it's Malcolm, so that was a dream. But to be directed by her in this, we couldn't have dreamed of having, someone better than her.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so this is another next extension to that in terms of research that you had to do from this influential man, not just the man himself, but even like from the playwright, from Kent Powers, from the other incarnations and creations of this character, through Denzel Washington to Nigel Thatch, who played it in Selma, as well as the Godfather of Harlem. What was it for you that you had to do to embody this character? Because there's so many different things to pull from, so many different sources of material, different things that you've seen, but what was it for this specific role that you had to pull from it, and what was the research behind that?
you know, when you read this script, it's very, very clear that the vulnerability of these men is at the heart of the story. And that is what Kemp was trying to explore. He was trying to explore these iconic figures in a private room. He wanted to sort of examine like what these men might have been like outside of the media cameras. And so I guess for me, understanding what Malcolm's function within this story was the most important, you know, thing going into this at the beginning. And once I understood that the vulnerability was really at the heart of this, Regina and I, we connected on the idea of trying to explore who Malcolm was as a father and who Malcolm was as a friend and who Malcolm was, you know, as a husband and what Malcolm was like with his children. And, you know, the more you investigate what was going on around this time in Malcolm's life, the more I sort of understood that like he was in a real transitional moment. There were so many massive changes that were happening for him. His 12-year relationship with the Nation of Islam was really coming to an end. And Elijah Muhammad, his father figure, that relationship was crumbling as the hypocrisies and indiscretions were becoming clearer and clearer. The chickens coming home to roost speech had just happened in the November. Like Malcolm was on a ban at this time of the fight. So I really feel like there was a sense that he knew people were out for him and that his days, you know, might be numbered. So anyway, I wanted to kind of like really try and embody that as an idea and try and find a way to like put a Malcolm on screen that felt different, to put a Malcolm on screen that felt like a Malcolm we hadn't seen before, and a Malcolm that people could look at and recognize that he wasn't just a man, you know, although he was a hero, like the thing that made Malcolm really a hero was that he must have felt scared and he still faced it. He still went out there. He still put his life on the line and he died for Black people. Do you know what I mean? He demanded that white America take a really hard look at themselves. And I think for that reason, he's a hero. But Dick Gregory, Malcolm's, you know, dear friend, said some really wonderful things about Malcolm. And he said that the lacerating demagogue that we all know, you know, from those archive footage, like that was really a character that Malcolm slipped in and out of, but wasn't the sum total of who he was. And if Malcolm was here now, he'd be embarrassed to hear us speaking about him, because deep down, you know, in private, he was a sweet and bashful man, a kind man, and a good human man. And I hung on to those words. And Dick also said that Malcolm said to him around this time that he felt weak and he felt hollow and that no one knew the torments that he was going through. So it gave me a real sense listening to Dick's words or reading Dick's words that like, this man was maybe, you know, really suffering in silence. And I wanted to explore what that must have felt like as a human being, to be going through those kind of things that Malcolm was going through. So, you know, and you know, if we want to see that, you know, the other thing I think that I learned that was really interesting, when you watch the Malcolm videos as many times as I did, and I watched them hundreds of times, hundreds of times, I went over and over and over and over, you realize that Malcolm is he's always responding to the most hideous instances of police brutality or racism in literally 24 hours before. So all of that stuff where you see him enraged and passionate and trying to get his word to the people, there always seems to be something so horrendous that's happened before in terms of like, you know, Black people being killed. So, you know, all of that was, I can't actually remember what your question was because I've just been ranting at you for 7 minutes, but talk to me.
No, I think you answered it. And I mean, I think for me, as a critic and watching it, like the performance did speak to that. I saw the paranoia. I saw the fear. I saw the need to protect. I saw the need for camaraderie. I saw the need of desperation. But more than anything, like you said, like a hollowed shell of a person that really is just kind of embracing this moment, but at the same time, you know, trying to protect everything around him. And I think that your performance, it nailed that. So if that's what you were trying to achieve, you did a really great job at identifying that. And then the other question I had was really just, this wasn't your first time working on an influential character or person. When we actually watched this, I screened this first at the Middleburg, Virginia virtual film festival. And I was like, man, this is such a good role. Like, he's doing a really great job. But one of my friends was like, man, he would really a really good Barack Obama. If they ever did like a biography or something like that directly on Barack Obama, he'd be great for that. Unbeknownst to me, that the Comey rule, you did play that character. And so it was just interesting that I was curious, what was the difference in process? I mean, granted, you didn't have as much screen time with that, but it must have took a lot of more dedication just as much as this as well. So I was curious, what was the difference when it came to Malcolm versus Barack in the way that you had to kind of go through that process with the roles?
Just on the pure scale and size of the parts, in the Comey, it was really a handful of scenes that I had in the Comey rule. Malcolm's emotional undercurrent is at the center of that story. So I've never had that level of responsibility as an actor. I've never played a character whose emotional interior is that connected to the story. Do you know what I mean? So it's a different kind of responsibility. And so that was new to me. So I do find them very, very difficult to compare because they're two very, very different jobs. What I found really interesting about both of them is one of my favorite parts of like this job is at the beginning, learning about the history around the time. Do you know what I mean? And when you're playing a detective or a love interest off a show, you sort of make that stuff up. But this was an example of like, actually really having to understand the Russian influence on the elections in 2016 and what was going on and all of that stuff. And so much of it blew my mind. Same with Malcolm, like figuring out what was going on for him around this time. So that part of it was kind of similar, in the preparation, but the dialects are different. Luckily, weight-wise, they both fall in a very, very similar place. And they're both kind of light, slim dudes. And Barack, there's a coolness about the way he moves through space. And I think Malcolm as well, it's very hard to find footage of Malcolm moving. He's often very still and he's often on a podium. So it's really hard to like see that out. So I'd see like, there's some footage somewhere where you see him getting out of a car but Malcolm was cool. Malcolm was from the street. So like, I wanted to try and embrace that a little bit as well. But he was also like a bona fide intellectual and one of the most intelligent, well-read human beings, is kind of trying to find the balance of all of that stuff. And, and then the rest of it's just pure play. You try and take as much of it into your body as possible. And then you just got to go in and figure it out with the actors who are in front of you. And I think with Malcolm, the hair and the glasses and the suits, these type of characters, the costumes really help. I was so moved. Miss Francine, who did our costumes on one night in Miami. I mean, the detail to her tailoring, because on one level, you just look at it as a suit, it's a simple costume, but I've never put something on that felt so beautiful and just made me feel connected to Malcolm and the character. And then, the glasses and the shoes. So it all, listen, as well, I was filming them both at the same time. So that whole experience is just like a whirlwind. Like, I don't really remember what happened because I was in such a state of adrenaline and work mode, and I wasn't eating, and I was smoking cigarettes and coffee, and I was just on a buzz, just riding through, and just became obsessed with the investigation of trying to figure out each day but I think it really focused, and everyone was so I guess as well, sorry, I've been rambling a lot, I've had too much caffeine today, but going back to your question about, Regina talking about the casting of this, and, did you say something about that?
Yeah, that was one of the first things. That was one of the first things that I stated.
Yeah. I think, Regina, she didn't have that much time. Her Malcolm pulled out last minute. So she was under real pressure to find someone who, right height, complexion, understood, had the experience. So the whole thing was a bit of a whirlwind. And like, I found out last minute that I got a job. So I just had like 2 weeks to prepare. So it's just a reminder how like much in this game, you just got to stay open and you don't know what's going to happen. And boy, I'm glad it did happen, because working with Regina changes the way you look at things in a big way.
Yeah. Sounds like a huge blessing, I know that the character most of the time in this specific sense was a lot of controversy behind him, but you didn't get to see most of that. It was more so the conversations that were so pivotal. And then it was a lot of contention in themselves with what they really believed, what they knew was right and true. But as far as Malcolm, in your personal perspective of this film, what was his real role? And what do you think that on viewers that are watching this, what do you think that you would want them to get from this character, from this sense, in this role?
You know, Regina described her feeling when she read this film. She felt that it was a love letter to Black men. And she told me that, she told all of us that before we started. And I thought that was just a really beautiful sort of guiding the kind of mission statement going into this, you know, that, so we all connected on that. And really, when you read this, the love and the joy and the friendship and the connection between these men in private is really like the center of this thing, and something I don't feel like we're that used to seeing. So it felt kind of, it's crazy to think that like that's radical. Yeah. You know, 4 Black men in a room showing love and talking and bouncing off ideas about how to be better without sex, drugs, violence, jail. Like the fact that that's new in 2021 is mad, you know? So like that was kind of a really, really important thing that we all kept checking in about as we were filming. And I do feel like the discussion in the middle of this thing is the story is so, that when I read it, that debate is at the heart of this. So my function, I wanted to use Malcolm's backstory and history and the detail of what was happening for him at this time, that pressure cooker that he was in, the stakes and the danger that he, you know, the idea that his life might have been in danger. I wanted to use that to try and really activate the words. So me and Leslie could be in a conversation that would make people listen. And, you know, that's all I can really hope for, is that people are engaged with the conversation and emotionally engaged with the characters. And if people get to the end of this film and turn it off and talk about colorism and talk about responsibility as a celebrity, if people start having those conversations, we've done our job, you know. It's I think some people will find it tricky as well, seeing these men in this way, because they're so used to seeing them in the Hollywood, you know, in another way. So like, I just hope we've created something that's emotionally engaging and that people, you know, listen to, and then Kemp's words will do the rest, you know.
No, that was perfect. And that's the last question I had. I appreciate it so much, man.
My pleasure, brother.
All right. Congratulations and good luck.
I love your channel.
Oh, really?
Work, man. I love your reviews, man. You guys have me in stitches.
Okay.
Yeah. Take care, bro.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell button, and definitely go down to the description bar below and go and check out this awesome film. You can go and check out our full review. I'll leave that somewhere tagged right here. And the movie does drop this Friday, January the 15th. Go and check it out on Amazon Prime immediately. Take care, guys.